You wake up one morning and find that Ethereum has been sued by the SEC. You feel a sharp, tingling, uncomfortable pain run down your back, and your palms are sweaty, your forehead is sweating, and you're not sure what you're going to tell your wife because you've been putting the kids' money in for the past few years, and you're not sure if you're going to be able to take that 1 year extended travel trip that you've always been dreaming of. So in this video, we'll go through what will happen to the Ethereum price if it was sued by the SEC. I looked at some previous data of all the previous lawsuits, and also I will explain why it probably wouldn't even matter in the end anyway. So watch this video if you want to understand what happens and what are the implications on Ethereum if it was sued by the SEC. By the way, if you like what I do and want more fundamental analysis content on cryptos, hit the like and subscribe button. It really helps the channel out a lot, and I'm looking to pump out more content this year. Thank you very much, and let's get on with the video. So in the previous video, we went through some of the points that the SEC could raise against Ethereum to sue them. In this video, we'll go through what if that actually happened and play out some of the scenarios that could happen and some of the implications. So first off, the mere fact that Ethereum is being sued by the SEC is negative. The mere announcement of a lawsuit would cause a drop in price. We see here that from the previous data of all the previous lawsuits, every single lawsuit resulted in a price drop, anywhere between 20% to 90%. So the average price drop is about 45%. And if we take the price of Ethereum today, a 45% drop would mean the Ethereum price would go down to $1,500 plus. The price drops happen almost immediately. We see on the graph here, this is the amount of days it takes from the top to the bottom. So when a lawsuit is announced till the new bottom price. So we can see here, it takes anywhere from 2 to 27 days. On average is about 6 days. So if Ethereum was sued, you have about, let's say, 6 days to sell before it reaches that new price bottom. So if a lawsuit was announced, I would suggest you sell immediately. Now, there are some things you can do to prepare for that. I talk about this in another video and I'll put a link above. Now, during the lawsuit, one of the things that can happen is that Ethereum trading would be suspended on a number of exchanges. The fact that you can't buy Ethereum would put a dampener on the price. Now, although there are exchanges which operate outside the US usually sets precedent for how securities are regulated. Exchanges which are more conservative would follow suit, and they would also likely suspend trading of Ethereum. Furthermore, there may be restrictions over the use of Ethereum for paying gas fees. So we know there's a lot of businesses now that work with Ethereum, such as Ernst & Young here, Consensus is a big one, Infura is a big one. These are just some big companies which their entire business is based on Ethereum. So the fact that using Ethereum may be restricted really puts the question forward, are these businesses even viable, and would they even be able to continue business activity during the lawsuit? This may bring these businesses to a halt as they can't allow their customers to be effectively playing around with unregistered securities. It would create massive market chaos, basically. Ethereum is also one of the first movers in the space. It created a whole collection of different projects, protocols, and different use cases. DeFi, NFT, smart contracts, they wouldn't be where they are today without Ethereum. Ethereum is sort of like that Lego set that every kid in the kindergarten wants to play with. And since Ethereum was the genesis of so many ideas, the fact that it's going through a lawsuit would bring the whole crypto industry into question. It would affect the entire crypto market. It would probably be covered by major news outlets, headlines across the board, and it would just really call the whole legitimacy of the space into question. Looking at the data of the previous lawsuits, we can see that it has taken anywhere between 37 to 498 days for prices to return back to pre-lawsuit levels. On average, it has been about 90 days. So the data is saying here that if Ethereum was sued, you would have to wait at least 90 days for the price to return back to pre-lawsuit levels. Now, while the price may recover, the lawsuit itself may take longer. An example we see here is the Ripple case with the SEC. This has taken more than a few years to play out, and it is still ongoing. Now, depending on how well the Ethereum lawyers are prepared, it could take a similar amount of time to the Ripple case. And also, just from looking at the recent SEC lawsuits, this case for the SEC would be huge, and it would help them really show face in the market and show everyone who's boss. The SEC won't go down without a fight. Now, depending on the strength of the case on the side of Ethereum lawyers, they may come to a settlement agreement with the SEC. So if they think they're going to win, they most likely won't come to a settlement. But if they are not sure if they're going to win and if they want to save time, they will probably come to a settlement. This will result in some hefty fines. How much the fines could be would be, I think, in the order of a few billion. We can see an example here with Binance. Binance was recently fined 4+ billion. So we could probably estimate that Ethereum would be fined in a similar magnitude to that. Now, let's say Ethereum has been sued. They're going through the lawsuit. They've come to a settlement, and it actually has been deemed that Ethereum is a security. This is the worst case scenario. If Ethereum itself is deemed a security, then the crypto space as we know it is pretty much dead. Because if Ethereum is deemed a security, that sets precedent for all the different networks and also all the different projects which spawned under Ethereum. So it not only affects Ethereum, but it affects any ERC20 based token and pretty much any smart contract token which was raised in an ICO. The fact that it is a security means that developers would now have to comply with a whole bunch of new securities laws, adding on compliance and administrative costs. The costs of doing this may be too burdensome and would probably mean that some developers wouldn't even get started with this. The complexity and cost of launching a project similar to Ethereum would just be too much. Now, the developers and players who can afford those costs would mean that the whole ethos of decentralization would come into question, because only the players with sufficient amount of resources are able to go through this whole process. And it would mean that there would be less decentralization in the market, because all the products and services and networks would effectively be centralized in those players who could afford those costs. Now, all those exchanges would then have to register with the SEC as being a securities exchange. This would mean that there would be a delay or a gap in time when there is no buying and selling of Ethereum. This would mean the Ethereum price growth would be slower and the market itself would have reduced buying and selling activity. Investing and using ERC20 tokens itself may also be restricted to accredited investors. This seriously limits the innovation and the usage and the total addressable market of these solutions. Now, you could make the argument that we don't need the US. There's loads of other exchanges and businesses outside of the US that can just ignore those rules. But what you're effectively saying is you don't care about the biggest capital and consumer market in the world. And the fact that you don't care about it means that you're losing out on all that growth, and the scale of your projects would be a lot smaller. So just to illustrate the point here, we can see the NYSE and the NASDAQ are the two biggest capital markets in the world. Now, all this sounds really bad, but is it actually realistic? I don't think so. And I would go as far as to say that Ethereum has kind of a too big to fail status with regards to an SEC lawsuit. Let me explain. So Ethereum has grown to such a size where there are so many businesses, big and small, using it to develop new solutions. And we can see here on this graph here, if you look to the left, we can see that Ethereum has been adopted by some very large enterprises here. Furthermore, the SEC's mission is to protect investors. and to maintain fair, orderly, and efficient capital markets. Now, if the SEC does sue Ethereum, they would effectively be going against their two main directives. They wouldn't be protecting investors because a lawsuit would just create massive market chaos and many businesses will be damaged by this. If Ethereum is found to be a security, then all these projects and businesses I mentioned would effectively have to go back to the drawing board and include new compliance measures into their products. During this time, the usage of these products may halt, effectively damaging all these companies and investors. All the time they put in and resources they've invested would just be really damaging. Therefore, I think it's highly unlikely that the SEC would sue Ethereum, and most likely they will agree on some settlement if it even came to that. I think the outcome of this settlement, would be that Ethereum pays a huge fine and then it is deemed not a security. This way, the SEC can show face while not creating some massive market chaos. Now, if this happens, this is actually the best case scenario because this would create certainty for Ethereum, meaning that people know that Ethereum is definitely not a security, and including all the other projects and other things that are based off Ethereum as well. This would mean that businesses and individuals who were previously on the sidelines, not getting involved in the market because of regulatory uncertainty, means that they would join the market now because there is certainty. So I think this is probably the best case scenario, and it would mean that Ethereum price would probably continue to grow as it has always been growing, and maybe even faster growth than before. So guys, to summarize, Ethereum lawsuit would result in a price drop. So I would suggest sell your Ethereum immediately when you hear that. Be prepared of any news of SEC announcing there's a lawsuit against Ethereum. You can watch my previous video. I'll drop a link above on how you can prepare to do that. The second thing is the Ethereum lawsuit will most likely end in a settlement, and I personally think that it wouldn't be deemed a security, because if it was deemed a security, it would just create so much chaos that the SEC would effectively be going against their main directives of protecting investors and maintaining an orderly market. Okay, so that's it, guys. Hope you liked the video. If you have any feedback or comments, just drop them in the comments below. I read all comments. Hit the like and subscribe button as always. Appreciate you guys, and I'll see you next time.